The COVID-19 pandemic is here. It has moved our lives into hibernation, has brought chaos to our door. We are in ruin. We need a balancing force, a hero, a savior, to restore world order. Fear not. What's on in the peloton is here, bringing you what others cannot. Long-winded, inconcise, unrestrained and mindless chatter. These are unprecedented times where what's on in the peloton may be exactly what you need.
Welcome back to the third edition of the rebirthed What's On in the Peloton podcast. I am your host, Timothy Guy, and I'm joined here by your co-host, Neil Vanderplug.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Now, firstly, congratulations, Tim. Congratulations, me, and congratulations, Australia. We have proved ourselves to be expert curve flatteners.
Ooh, that sounds very fancy. The curve flattened is something that's been talked all over the place.
We're all familiar with it by now. We're all very familiar with the flattening of the curve. So we were commanded, Tim, to flatten the curve. And by God, we have excelled. People went above and beyond. It did take us a little bit to get going, I will say, Tim. There was a few hitches at first. I think at first the message was coming from the government, social distancing, and no one was, very few people were doing any social distancing at all. And then we had that Sunday where there was a very serious announcement from the PM. Restaurants were closed. Cafes were closed. That's when things got serious. And by the end of that week, we had kicked into gear and, man, we just started flattening the shit out of it, Tim.
We certainly did. I just saw a graph the other day. We like to bring up the graphs here on What's On in the Peloton.
Yeah.
I saw one which was the number of cases since 100, I think, since after they're mapping them around the world. And you have a look at Australia. Now, it did take us a little bit longer to start flattening off compared to somewhere like Taiwan, which had a very impressive
quick
early
out of the
flattening.
blocks, Taiwan, but they've sort of slowed, haven't they? Japan and Taiwan. Or was it Singapore?
Yeah.
I might be thinking of Singapore. But anyway, there's a few of those who got off to a good start and then sort of, they're sort of petering out. But we seem to have had the opposite.
Taiwan has carried very well with their flattening. They're flattened quite well. So we kind of have now, we're sort of flat as well as them, but we jumped up a little bit early. So like you said there, took a little while for us to really get on board with the message. But once we did, we took it on as our own.
Ran with it.
And we, as you said, we smashed the shit out of flattening the curve. I don't think that's the right sort of way of saying it.
Nah, it doesn't matter,
Nonetheless, we've done it.
Look.
Well, we're doing it.
We're doing it. We've flattened it. We've squashed it flat, but it hasn't been the most accurate, I would say, Tim. We're not exactly we may be very effective at flattening the curve, but I think we've been flattening not just the COVID-19 curve. We've lacked a little bit of accuracy. We've been flattening curves wherever we see them. The Australian public have once we've started flattening, we've thought, righto, let's do it. Where's a curve? Let's flatten it. And unfortunately, Tim, I believe our podcast here, the Rebirth Edition, What's On in the Peloton, has fallen prey to this slightly overzealous and inaccurate flattening of the curve.
Well, Neil, I've also seen a graph on this, and it matches very, very nicely with Australia's effort of flattening the coronavirus. We took off quite well, actually. Early on, it looked like a little bit of an infestation. You're like, this is really starting to niggle in and get amongst the people.
Absolutely. First podcast, it was like, oh, geez, this is deadly. This is spreading. This thing is contagious. Never mind the virus. This podcast is really spreading. And then second episodes come out, and with the efforts of all this curve flattening, we've been flattened, Tim.
Well, we have...
We've been
we
seriously
have almost
flattened.
Been flattened to zero.
Not quite like the virus. We still had a bit of reach in the second episode, but by God, it was a bit worrying.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's going to be a little bit of a hard sell to try and get this back and really infesting the people.
It's early days, Tim. Look, there's been some relaxing of the measures recently. We've had on Friday, Scott Morrison's come out and announced a bit of a roadmap. More on that later, but there's been a bit of a relaxing of the curve flattening efforts. So, look, maybe we'll find the podcast, finding a few legs again. I don't know. Maybe the accuracy will get better over time. I suspect so. Early on, it's a bit blunt, bit sort of gung-ho, we're sort of swinging our fists around left, right, and centre, and now we're sort of maybe starting to get a little bit more accurate. That's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Well, we may actually have a little bit of groundwork where we are actually starting to get much more on the target. So you've started off there with some negative news. Australia probably a little too overzealous with flattening the curves. Let's flatten them everywhere.
Yep.
Let's reduce everything we possibly can.
But not some. There is hope, Tim. As you were saying.
There is hope.
Yeah.
Now,
so.
one area is booming. Now,
absolutely. We've got some dissenters in the ranks, Tim. Not everyone. Most people are absolutely listening to the message, flattening curves, wherever they see them. But we have a few people who say, no, we refuse to flatten all curves. I'm just worried. It sounds like I'm really glorifying people who are just completely doing the wrong thing in terms of following restrictions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the people who are more like, got some accuracy about them. So they're doing the right things in terms of the virus, but they're also allowing other things to flourish. And what I'm talking about here is the curve of the Patreon supporters, Tim.
That's exactly
curve
right.
Is looking healthy. Very healthy.
The Patreon supporters in a graph are nearly going vertical.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking a very steep acceleration.
Very, very steep. Now, 0 after the first episode, Tim. So flat as a tack. After the second episode, we have got 2 dissenters who have signed up. Bill and Zach. So
thank
Bill
you,
and
Bill,
Zach,
and thank you, Zach.
we salute you guys. Thank you very much. And look, if this keeps up, Tim, 0, you can't make a percent from 0 to 2. That's how big it is. God knows how many we'll have after this episode. But if this trend continues, our modelling suggests here at What's On in the Peloton that pretty soon, we don't know exactly when, but the entire world will be our Patreon supporter, Tim.
Yeah, it's only, as far as I can see from looking at the data, it is only a matter of time.
We've done the modelling.
We've done some very impressive modelling, and it's a little bit disconcerting at the moment talking to you, Neil, when we're talking about this sort of taking over the world. The reason it's disconcerting is because Neil and I are on Zoom here, so we get on Zoom so we can see each other, and Neil has been quite addicted of late to the green screen. He likes to put a green screen up behind him and put a picture up. Now, over the last couple of weeks, as we're just getting into the podcast, the green screen that's behind him, it started off with some very nice little bits of grass, maybe some grass with some dew on it. Beautiful things like this. Then it stepped
nice
along.
Sunny day.
It was a lovely sunny day. There was one maybe with a little bit of, where it was like the pontoon heading out into the water. A jetty, rather. The jetty. Little jetty you could
Fingers
fish
of
on.
God shining through on the cloudy day.
Now, we have turned from the fingers of God to what I am seeing behind Neil now is a very, very end of days kind of picture. It is, I don't even know what they are. They're very, very steep mountains with a whole shitload of lava-y, blood-red lava, doomy-looking skies, and pretty much exactly the kind of thing you would expect to see for someone wanting to take over the world. That looks like a world domination, but it also looks like a let's destroy everything. And I'm not sure if that's your image of what's on in the Peloton. We're on very different levels. But look, I just thought I'd bring that up for the people at home because you're talking a little bit about this taking off.
I see what you mean.
The green screen's disconcerting, Neil. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, look, you're right to be a bit sort of rattled by the background. I didn't actually mean to put it up for the podcast here, Tim. I apologise. But it's actually, I got this picture from the internet. And to get it, I Googled or typed into DuckDuckGo, a bit more of a private sort of privacy player search engine. I typed in hell, and this is what came up. So, yes, it's hopefully we're not heading to hell, but look, a world full of Patreon supporters, Tim, I think would be far from hell.
I think maybe what we need to go with is the light in the darkness. This picture actually does have a very nice shimmering from above.
Oh, yes.
And And I think that's and the light on your face, actually, Neil, I must say, is quite is very impressive. So I'm going to go with that sort of flow and thinking more of that. Now,
I might actually just change it though. I don't think hell is an appropriate background.
Yeah, look, if you could put up something that sort of
There
puts
we
me in
go.
there we go. That was just the green of
There you
the
go,
green
the
screen.
beach.
Now we have a palm tree. It's flickering, and the top of Neil's head, which is actually with the green screen, it actually struggles a little bit with like sort of the edges. So at the moment, it works really well though because it sort of flickers a little bit. So it looks like your hair's waving in the breeze.
Yeah, the green screen I've found does struggle a little bit with curls. So look, I don't want to get in on another curly rant, Tim, but surprise, surprise, curls have been not thought of when we're in the green screens. So, if you've got a nice solid border, all this straight hair, like you've got at the moment, you're sort of neatly tucked into a ponytail, green screen would have no problem. You throw some curls in, ooh, can't do that, sorry, turn away, go home. Anyway, sorry, Tim, but I think we should move on.
I think so. We've, I don't know, that was an unplanned segue, as with most of what's on the Peloton.
A curly rant is never far with me, Tim.
That is very true, and we need to actually try and divert away before the curly rant takes up 3 hours. It has happened before. Now, over the last couple of podcasts, we've had to come back after each one and sort of admit to a little bit of lying. Initially it was just after the first podcast.
Yes.
In the second one, we have to backtrack yet again.
Yes,
now, I made a bold claim, a very, very
I was right there with you, Tim. I was right there with you.
We claimed in the last episode that it was the first time that we'd had a guest on What's On in the Peloton.
I don't know what
fabrication.
I don't know what we were thinking, Tim.
Absolute lie.
We've had heaps of guests before.
Look,
just got caught in the moment.
Probably more than 50%, more than half of the podcasts we've done have had guests. So absolute lie. I think Neil he led me down the garden path there a little bit.
I think what was going on though, Tim, in our defense,
I was the one that said it.
We haven't put out podcasts in many years. Things get a bit, patchy, a bit hazy. And also, this feels like a new beginning, Tim. It's a new beginning for What's On in the Peloton, a rebirthed podcast. That's what we've been calling it. So that's sort of what we meant. It's our first guest. This is sort of in our defense. First guest of the
two
rebirth.
episodes.
Yes, that's what we were meaning. So, look.
And in that case, we were 100% accurate. We had no guests in the first episode. Episode, I think, is the correct word.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Neil. And one in the second one. So there we go.
First time.
We did have. That was the first guest. You can expect more. Not this episode. Oh,
no.
Actually, maybe
we've got one coming.
Episode.
Oh yeah,
there you
we
go.
got one coming. You hang on to your hat there, Tim.
I lied to them. I lied to them off the front. We don't have any today. Yes, we do. We always need to backtrack, so maybe we can get it out of the way.
We will backtrack immediately later on in this episode, and we will bring you another guest. But, yes, Tim.
We'll keep that one under a hat for the moment, I think. We'll just tuck that away. Now, as far as I'm aware, that was the only fabrication that we said in the last episode. I'm hoping that's the case.
If you've got another, message, get in contact.
Let us know.
Make a comment.
We are more than happy.
We're happy to address it.
We're not happy.
We're not happy with it, but we're happy to address it, aren't we, Tim? That's one thing we've
We
shown.
will accept it.
We will accept. Well, we might dodge it, but we will take it up on air. We'll deal with it head on.
Yeah, in some form or another. Now, what I would like to bring up with you next, Neil, is there seems to be a little bit of confusion out there about what exactly the purpose of What's On in the Peloton is. Now, we've got a comment. We've had a comment, and the comment that I got was actually formed in a question, and the question was, are you meant to be funny? So I thought I would come back and Neil, I would ask you.
I'm happy to answer
and myself. Are we meant to be funny? Is that what What's On the Peloton's about?
Well, I would say, in a sense, no, absolutely not. We're not meant to be funny, but also potentially, yes, just quietly. Look, let me unpack that a little bit further, Tim. So, no, meant. So, Tim, you this year signed to Ljubljana Gusto Santic Continental Cycling Team. You're meant to be right now over in Slovenia training and racing. You've signed a contract. You're getting paid to do it, or at least that was the plan. That's what you were meant to be doing in 2020. You were meant to be riding your bike. That's what you're meant to be doing, not here cracking jokes trying to make this ignorant person laugh. You're meant to be riding. You have no responsibility, Tim. I say you have none. If you don't make people laugh, I think that's absolutely fine. You're meant to be riding. That's my defense of you, Tim. And for me, I have not signed any contract this year. I'm certainly not a professional rider this year, in any sense of the word. And, yeah.
But? Is there a but there, or are you saying that you must be funny? Maybe that's
well,
it.
look,
the
no. I definitely
squarely on your shoulders.
I am not also meant to be funny. I'm not a professional cyclist, but I'm also I'm meant to be doing other things. If you ask my wife Maddie, is Neil meant to be funny? She would say no. That's not at the top of the list of what she wants from me right now. She probably wants me to be doing something else. If you ask her, she'll be like, no, Neil is meant to be cleaning a toilet, picking up his stuff, doing a load of washing. That's what he's meant to be doing. God damn it, not cracking jokes. She doesn't want me in here trying to make any jokes or working on, making the audience or the listeners laugh more. No. Meant to be pitching in a bit more. Sorry, Maddie. So anyway.
What?
No, we're not meant to be funny, but at the same time, in another sense, yes, we're certainly trying to be funny. But look, we're not experts, as we have said. We're new to this podcasting game. We're certainly not sort of professionals, but we're trying. Yeah, we're trying. And look, if we get some laughs, Tim, if we get some lols, some ruffles, some belly laughs, people end up sort of listening to the podcast one day, fronting up the next day and having sore abs from laughing, that would be exceptional. That is the dream. That's what I would love to have happen. Like, that's the pinnacle. But are we meant to be doing that? No, we have no pressure as far as I'm concerned, Tim. No pressure. Any giggle we get is a bonus.
Therefore, we will settle for a smirk.
Settle for a smirk. And, Tim, even less than that. I would say, if someone is sitting there with a blank face, no smile at all, if I could just get a little glimmer of happiness building, just edging them ever so slightly closer towards a feeling that would trigger a smile, just movement towards the threshold of a smile, I'd be happy with that personally, Tim. I don't know about you. I'd be happy with that. So look, even if you're not smiling, I'd be happy if you were getting closer. Maybe someone else in your house will sort of take the credit. That will sort of just get you over the line and you get a smile. But if we can do just a little bit of groundwork in that direction, I'd be happy.
Look, I'm fully happy to get on board that and say, yeah, if we can build just those little bits at the base that a smile can come from, that is more than enough. Are we meant to be funny? No. Do we like to have people laugh?
Are we trying?
Yes.
Yes, we're trying. We're trying.
We try very hard from time to time.
And look, if you think about it in another sense, Tim. Like, imagine someone's just started riding a bike, started racing. Are they going to front up to their first race and say, are they meant to win? Well, of course they're meant to win. That's what they're trying to do. Everyone's meant to win. That's what they're trying to do in the race. But you got to take what you can get. First race, you'd consider just, maybe sticking with the bunch. Maybe that could be a great goal for your first race. Maybe just hanging in there for, a couple of minutes. Depends on who you are, where you're coming from. What your expectations are. So our expectations, low. Not professionals, but we're aiming to win the race. Don't get us wrong.
First,
we're
if we
aiming
can
for
get some
ruffles.
listeners, if we can get some listeners without laughs, we will take them. By gosh, we will take them.
We'll take them.
If we can get listeners with a laugh, well, that's an extra bit of a bonus. So it's sort of it's the preferred method, but not necessarily what we get. So are we meant to be funny? I think that question has been answered.
Yes.
So for that one, no, we're not meant to be, but we sure hope that we are occasionally.
Yes.
Maybe a little more than occasionally.
Yes.
Now, we've got a couple of comments, so maybe we'll jump on to the next one
positive
while we've got a
Tim,
chance.
let's get to a good one here.
Yes.
Good news.
This one is positive. You had me thrown for a second there. I was like, I better look forward and have a look at this and see whether it was positive. And I can confirm, I can come back with you with a double tick for the for that. Yes, indeed, it is a positive. We have had a comment. Well, this is from Tom in Newcastle. And he has quoted, Tom, we are very happy with this one, very happy. He has come out and said that he found the podcast more relaxing than meditation.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. Now,
that is positive. It's not a laugh, but that's good. It's undoubtedly good.
That is very good. That does not lean towards the kind of thing you would expect of a comedy podcast, but we will take this because we haven't actually got stars for this one, so we haven't got a 5-star rating.
Hasn't converted into that. We had the opposite last week, didn't we? We had that
we
comment.
Had a 5-star rating from Maddie, from your wife, Neil. We had a 5-star rating,
was
but
about
the comment
muting.
didn't seem 5
I didn't
stars.
like the comment, Tim. The comment was rubbish. The stars were good, and I suppose we took what we could from that. But, geez, the comment was not so great. The ability to mute them both.
Yeah, at first I thought it was great. I was like, Maddie's quite funny here. She's had a bit of a laugh about muting her husband and then gone on to saying muting me. And my
you're not
demeanour immediately changed. I've not talked to Maddie since, and I don't intend to.
Oh. But look, she did give us 5 stars, so that was good. But this is the opposite. We haven't converted it to the 5-star review, but that is a good comment. That's
a very good comment.
After.
Comment. Losing my words there. Thank you for the second time I think today. You've helped me fix my words. But more relaxing than meditation. As we said, we will most certainly take that. And something like that, we don't need to backtrack on something like that. We're happy to take that. We're not going to wind back at all.
I am, however, a little bit concerned. I feel like I've done a fair bit of yelling in the start of this episode, so hopefully we haven't sort of spoiled it there. But, Tom, hopefully if you are listening to this right now in a meditative state, feeling nice and relaxed, I hope you're enjoying the show.
I'm not really sure what to say with the very smooth way that your voice came out then, Neil. I think we can probably keep the podcast in its general format. Tom seemed to be finding it relaxing without the use of relaxing tones.
Yeah, we've got to be careful here, Tim. If we try and be relaxing, because, look, evidently from the last comment, if we try to be funny, we may not be at all funny. If we try and be funny and also relaxing, we may lose that too. Tom may lose what he was getting out of the podcast in the first place. So let's just plough on as we normally do, Tim, and see what happens. I think that's all we can do. Just hope for the best.
Hope for the best seems like a very good policy. Now, in the first episode that we recorded, Neil, you were talking about how your sporting prowess was something that actually had attracted Maddie to you. Now, we were saying that we were talking about how COVID had changed things. Now, you were saying it had taken a bit of a hit because it was difficult.
Yes, that element was sort of... It was eroded away.
Gone.
It was taken from me. It was taken from me, Tim.
Which was a big shame. It's quite a shame that you could no longer stand on that. So instead of standing on your sporting prowess, what you had to do instead was turn to your curls. Now, there was an awful lot of pressure placed on those precious curls.
The poor curls have had to do a lot of work, Tim. They've had to do a lot of legwork in this marriage.
And by the looks of things, from what we understand, those curls were doing a reasonable job at holding things together.
Yep.
But in our last episode, we also talked about how Strava had given an opportunity for you to regain some of that sporting prowess. I believe that you had a group of your friends or a group of the people around Albury had all gone in together to put together a little competition where a segment was done once a week. Now, last week, we recorded the podcast on a Sunday, and it was actually, I think it might have even been around midday. Now, this competition wasn't going to end until midnight on the Sunday. You claimed very, very confidently...
I was too confident, Tim. I was very confident, wasn't I?
Well, you came out and claimed the win. I think you said that you'd taken the victory.
I thought I was very much on track, Tim, yes.
Well, I must admit we were a little bit nervous once you said that, especially when the sun was quite high in the sky. We thought there's plenty of day left, and maybe you were counting your chickens a little bit too early. Now, Neil, what we want to know is did you take that victory, or in the end, did someone come out with those precious few hours left in the day?
Tim,
Was there someone, anyone
Tim,
at all, that maybe
worse,
you?
Tim, worse than that.
Worse?
Yes, it's much worse, Tim. We have been fools. We have been absolutely made fools of here. It appears we have learned nothing from this pandemic. Nothing at all. So, before this pandemic, Tim, back pre-2020, think of yourself, younger self in 2019, 2018, 2017, those just pre-2020. We made the mistake back then of gazing forward into the future, looking at the calendar of 2020 and presuming there was going to be some level of certainty. Tour de France, July. That's what we would have absolutely banked on. We would have banked on if you could have taken a bet. Like people were making fairly, they were betting money of particular winners of the Tour de France. No one was betting money on whether the Tour de France would actually take place. No one was taking bets for that. That was a stupid thing to be talking about. We were gazing
No
forward
one talked about it.
as if there was some sort of certainty, as if it would exist in 2020. Mistake, Tim. And look, and it's not just big things like the Tour de France. It's not just like these real global things. It's also just the smaller things, the more community things. Like in Albury, we have a bunch ride on Sunday that's called church. Happens all the time. It's like church every Sunday morning. You don't need to do it every time, but if you want to go to church bunch ride, you can rock up and you can have a bit of a ride. You know what to expect. But no, church is not either. Another one, 2020. Another small example here. We thought there'd be a steady demand of toilet paper in 2020. Wrong. There's not a steady demand of toilet paper. We went bananas. Random chaos. We just lost ourselves. No one knows what happened. We just went bananas on toilet paper. Everyone was doing it. A lot of people pretending they weren't. We were all doing it, Tim. We were all buying the toilet paper, getting caught up in the moment. And it wasn't our fault. There is no certainty for 2020. There's this random force of chaos, and that is absolutely, that's what's driving 2020. There is no certainty at all. And look, I will say, Tim, that we started off well. You and I, we started off well dealing with this chaos that we're sort of confronted with. We embraced it. We put out a podcast, Tim. We haven't put out a podcast in years. There we go. We didn't even plan it. All of a sudden, I think that you sort of just said, we've still got the license to put out a podcast. Bam. A couple of days later, we're doing one. We don't know what we're doing. It was full of random nonsense if you've heard it. If you haven't, you can go back. Please do. And, we said, look, this will come out about once a month. Second episode, Tim. 1 week later. Straight in your face. Just perfect. Embracing the chaos. No certainty. And then, what's more, we had a cat expert on there, Tim. A cat expert. Where the hell did that come from?
I don't know anything about cats.
We were talking about cats and dogs by the end of the episode. And look, wacky. But that's 2020, Tim. That's what you got to do. You got to roll with what's this chaotic force that's driving with it. We were just surrendering to this force that's flowing through everything right now, and it was working. But then later on in that episode, Tim, as you were saying, I was like an absolute fool. And look, I hate to be harsh, but you too, Tim, and Ash, all of us. I was thinking, I was the stupidest. I was thinking that we might be able to take a little victory here. I was counting my chickens well before they hatched, but we didn't even fear what actually happened, Tim. The competition itself, it fell to pieces. It's gone. There is no Strava competition anymore.
What, there was no winner?
No, there was no winner. No one pipped me, but it all stopped. So the person who was organising the whole competition, basically, Sunday night when he was looking through and, going through the handicaps, working out what was going on, with basically, he more or less just left the group. And look, I could try and give you some answers on, why people thought that he left the group, that sort of thing. We could try and analyze it, but there's no point because I think I've made it clear what the real under sort of current is here. Like, it's this sort of shit's happening everywhere, Tim. It's 2020. You got to expect that sort of stuff. You cannot expect any certainty. It's just a random year. Just that sort of stuff's, you got to expect that sort of stuff to happen. And we completely lost ourselves in that second episode towards the end, Tim. We absolutely lost our bundle. We dropped the bundle. We lost our shit. We dropped our bundle. That's what I think.
Look, you definitely seem very, very passionate about this one. Maybe a little bit, there's a bit of emotion running through there.
Well, look, things were going so well. When you look back, we did so well. It was nonsense. The podcast was nonsense. It was random. It was great. It was fully in line with 2020. And then all of a sudden, right near the end of the episode, we just, it's disgraceful. But look, Tim, it's all as bad as it is, and as regretful as I am about that. We're just doing a little podcast. We're not in a position of great power or responsibility here. And unfortunately, this is why I'm also emotional about this, Tim, getting a bit sort of passionate. I see people who are in those positions of great power making the same mistake. Scott Morrison, Tim, on Friday. As I said before, he's eased the restrictions right up. He was doing so well. He was saying, look, unprecedented, we're going to have to take it a day at a time. He was seeming to acknowledge the uncertainty that is at the heart of 2020. And now he's just completely...
And now we've got a map for the future.
He's got a roadmap. He's calling it a roadmap. He's got this long plan every 3 weeks. He's mapped it all out. People need certainty. He's saying, no, we don't need certainty because it cannot be delivered in 2020, Tim. Oh, and it worries me. So it worries me. Yeah,
it's not the year of certainty. Now, look, Neil, I fully understand. It's taken me a while to get on board because you were very, very, very forceful there, and I was trying to figure out exactly what was behind this and whether it was something I needed to jump on board.
It's something you need to jump on board. You need to get back to it.
Yeah, well, we need to get straight into the chaos. But before we jump right back into all kinds of what I want to know is it seemed that this Strava competition was a chance to regain a foothold in that marriage, to show some sporting prowess. Obviously, with the chaos of 2020, that was not possible. The rug has been pulled straight out from under you. You've fallen on your back. Has your head smashed into the ground? Have you hit your head on the floor? Are things going all right in the marriage? What's happened there? Is this something that's affected it?
Look, Tim, the marriage lives on. I don't know how. I thought I had a handle on it, but look, I'm just going with it. The curls, I'm really working the curls. I'm just trying to do my best there. I've shaved as well, trying to keep a fairly sort of, clean-shaven face. And look, I'm hanging in there. But look, what will happen? I don't know. Will the marriage end? Maybe. Uncertainty, Tim. I'm not making the same mistake and presuming anything. Maddie could do anything tomorrow, and I'm now okay with that. When I wake up, will she be there? Maybe not. Maybe. We've got a dog, Hansel, right now. If we wake up and Hansel's a cat, I'm ready for that now. This is 2020, Tim. This is no time to be presuming anything. That's how I'm dealing with it.
You've got to be ready.
Yes.
Now,
embrace the chaos.
I think we need to, for the listeners out there that are still cyclists, or they're the people that are tuning in, we've broadened our horizon. So we've got some people that are tuning in that are we're not just a cycling podcast, even though we're called What's On in the Peloton. It's a bit of a misleading name. We are for the people and for all people. But for those that are cyclists, we did seem to be pushing the idea of getting together some of these Strava competitions and getting out there and competing against each other. Now,
we should have put this in the backtracking section. We should have put this in the backtracking section. Don't do it, people.
This is a big backtracker.
Do
not do it. Bail.
Bail!
When I was talking to you off air, you had mentioned to me that not only did this problem occur in Albury, the chaos has spread to other areas that decided that they were going to put together their own competitions. Tell us a little bit about that. Everything's falling apart.
It's happening everywhere, Tim. In Mount Beauty, similar things have happened. There's been all sorts of chaos happening there. People, just unexpected things happening. People leaving groups, entering other ones, leaving other groups. A very similar thing happened in Bright. Exactly the same thing. The person who started the group actually dissolved the group. So, look, it's happening everywhere, Tim. It's ubiquitous. It's the force that we just have to deal with here.
So it's very, very tumultuous times, and that's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
I'm getting your message. The message has come across. The message has come across very clear. Do not expect anything.
No. And look, it's not just Scott Morrison. There's lots of leaders who are making the mistake of presuming certainty in 2020. Now, the Tour de France are also guilty of this, Tim. I believe they've locked in a date for the end of August. They said, that's it. The end of August, we will have the Tour de France and we will have spectators. I think they've even said that. They are making all sorts of presumptions of certainty, and Tim, it worries me. And that is why we are bringing on our guest this week. He is a man on the ground in France. He's our French correspondent.
We've got a man in France.
We do, Tim. He's don't expect a French accent because you will be very disappointed. He is not going to have a sensual, sort of, sexy French accent. Not that was it, but his accent. I've asked him actually.
It was doing it for me, Neil. It was doing it for me.
I asked him. I was like, "What is your accent?" And he said, "You probably call me a Cockney wanker." So. That's what we're dealing with here. He's a French correspondent. He is in France, just in case you hear his accent and think, what the hell? This is not, this is clearly not a French correspondent. This is not making any
sense, but it's 2020. Nothing should make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense, but he is a French correspondent. He is in France. His name is Mark Fenner. Now, if you're in the cycling game in Australia, you probably already know who he is. But, as we said, we're diversifying a bit here. Not everyone will know who he is. So, Mark Fenner, just to give you a quick intro into him before we cut to him in France, he is a coach. He's been a coach for well over a decade now, and he's got a business that is called FTP Training, and that is just full of coaches. So, he's got a lot of access. He's got a lot of athletes that he's overseeing himself, but he's also got a lot of coaches who have got athletes who he's overseeing. So he knows a fair bit about how this pandemic is affecting people, and hopefully we can also just get to the bottom of this Tour de France thing. Are they seriously trying to run the Tour de France in August, or have they got some other backup plans up their sleeve, which I think they should. So let's cross to France and speak with Mark Fenner himself.
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Fenz, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear. Bonjour. Comment ça va?
What a French accent.
What a French hat.
Oui, très bien. I've even got my Cougar on specially as I'm talking to Aussies, sir.
Yeah, you look the hat's taken me off guard, Fenz. I've never seen
it's
you.
It's thrown me completely. That hat is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we figured moving to France, we were much better as honorary Australians than we were from being Poms, you see. So we don't mention that. We just say we're Australians.
Actually,
goes down a lot better.
How do the French people take you? Like, do they hear your accent and do they straight away detect an Australian accent in the French that you speak, or do they detect the Britishness, or what do they think?
But I'm not sure that the French really know, to be honest.
They don't care.
I'm not sure.
They just turn their nose up at you. No, he's not French.
No. Yeah, we're not speaking French.
So, Fenz, next question. You are a coach at the head of FTP Training. You're the man at the top. Now, you've got lots of coaches beneath you. So how many have you got? About 20 coaches?
No, I think we've got 9 at the moment. We've got 9 coaches in
9 coaches
in Australia. Yep.
Well, that's all right. We've got still Fenz at the top, 9 coaches working underneath you. Now, I presume that they've probably got about another 9 coaches working beneath them. So, Fenz, I'm just going to come out with it. Is this a pyramid scheme?
No chance. No, mate. No.
Well, it looks like one, Fenz.
Yeah. No pyramids, mate. They're all their own bosses, really, in my business. You know, everyone's their own boss.
Well, we've got to ask the question, Fenz, because we have some cynical listeners. We were accused of cashing in on our Patreon supporters and pumping out episodes earlier on. So we just know we've got cynical people. That's what they were thinking. So we needed to just clear it up.
Yeah. Fair play, mate. Fair play. I totally understand.
Now, what's it like in France, Fenz? You've been there for a while now, and you've been there for the entirety of this COVID-19 pandemic. So what has the vibe been like in France? We understand from the stats that it looks quite bad. It looks like France has been hit pretty hard.
So look, for us, it's just been it's been complete lockdown here. So we've been 8 weeks or 9 weeks now. I think it's 9 weeks this week coming that I have only been out of the house or out of the property twice.
Wow.
So we live on a biggish property. So we've just been working on the property, working on the land and stuff, as well as obviously still working and coaching.
8 and 9 weeks.
But 9 weeks. It's been for me since really I had to go and take the car for a service, which was booked in and they would do it. So I did. And we took the cat to the vet because he wasn't well. And they're the only times I've been out the house. So
it's probably
down here.
Yeah, it's been a more severe lockdown, hasn't it?
Oh, fully. Yeah, you have to have a signed attestation to when you leave your house.
Wow.
And they brought an app out that you could use as well. You have to take a service bill to show your address. And if you get pulled over and you couldn't prove that you're out for shopping or for, legitimate reasons, and you were further away from your house than you needed to be, you get fined.
Big fines?
Yeah, they've dished out hundreds of thousands. I think hundreds of thousands of fines. And it was about 139 euros.
That's actually not as big as some of ours.
3,000.
Yeah, right.
Second fine was $3,000. Third, you're banged up. And shops, if it's a non-essential item, shops have been shut and they're not allowed. So if, for instance, our local Gamvere, which is like an animal foods supplier, rural stores, they can sell you rural feed. They can sell you feed for your animals, but they can't sell you anything else that's not necessary.
So they could sell you a Mars bar, but they couldn't sell you a hacky sack.
Yes. Non-essential.
Got it.
Perfect.
Non-essential.
Absolutely perfect description.
Yeah. Glad you cleared that up. We needed you here, actually.
Well, look, that's what our listeners are thinking, Fenz. That's what our listeners are thinking.
Yeah.
Neil could have helped you avoid many a fine. Don't touch that. Yes, touch that. Don't touch that.
Don't go near there.
What about toilet paper, Fenz? Because you would have heard, no doubt, in Australia, we went ballistic for the toilet paper. We really just thought, you know what? That's what we need in a lockdown. Lots and lots of toilet paper. Did that happen in France?
You got bidets galore.
Yeah, that's right. You just go back to old school. You wash it. Yeah. No, honestly, didn't happen here. And we in our little local supermarkets, it was just chilled. Everything was still there. There really wasn't any issues whatsoever.
No panic.
So there was
no strange people. Strange people in France.
That's not how you handle a pandemic.
No.
Yeah, no panicking going on. There was no panicking over here. It seemed the UK, America, Australia.
So what did you do, Fenz? Did you try and influence the French a little bit? Did you try and sort of,
get a little bit of panic in there?
Show them your British
pipe them up a little bit.
Yeah, did you try and
grab a couple of rolls of toilet paper?
It's contagious.
No, just a hermit, mate. I just stayed at home, and Sally went out and did the shopping. That was it. I've just been grafting. That's about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, I think Australia hasn't seen the same sort of level of carnage that there's been here in the States. So therefore, it's very much easier for the public to think it's not an issue.
Because you've got a few athletes yourself, and you've also got the network of coaches who are working for you. So you've actually got quite a good sort of sample of the cycling population in FTP training.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, how do you think the cyclists have generally responded to the lockdown? I'm wondering, if you got your athletes and race them, say, an FTP test pre-lockdown, and then you race them now, who's going to win? Pre-lockdown or post-lockdown? Because I know a lot of people have been absolutely hitting up the ergos and training the house down. Some people have had lots of time on their hands, and they've been doing super hard races on Zwift and that sort of thing. And we have seen Matt Hayman break his collarbone, get on the ergo, and win Paris-Roubaix. So how have your cyclists handled it, Fenz?
For most athletes, I've really tried to say, it's all very well going frothing at the nostrils on 3 Zwift races a week and being a Zwift racing champion, but then your wheels are going to fall off when you actually go to be able to race again. So what I've really tried to do is...
You would have been holding a lot of people back, wouldn't you, Fenz?
Just please, you know my analogy.
Get off
Neil.
it now.
It
doesn't
You
matter.
know my analogy, Neil. It's right.
Save it for the real races.
The suitcase of courage, Neil, isn't it? It's the suitcase of courage, mate. You've only got so much in the suitcase. But yeah, look, I just think it's very easy to get wrapped up in that virtual world of racing. And
any virtual world, Fenz. I've got addicted to Call of Duty a few years back, and I was in there. I was all over the world fighting battles for hours and hours a day. You can get sucked into any sort of game like that. You got to be careful. I was lucky to get out alive.
Well, I'm surprised at you, mate. I thought with all the training that I used to put you through, you wouldn't have had time for it.
This was pre. Yeah. And what do you think about this Tour de France, Fenz? I was actually quite worried that people are misunderstanding the year of 2020. We made the mistake earlier on, pre-2020, of looking at 2020 as a year where there would be some sort of certainty. No, I think this is a year of none. 2020 has no certainty. That is the character of 2020. And I'm getting a bit worried about our leaders like Scott Morrison putting out this very nice and orderly staged relaxing and resumption of normal activity. I think that is foolhardy. 2020, we need to just embrace the chaos, plan nothing, and just realise that there's no certainty to be had here. So we just need to let go of the reins and just roll with it. And then I also see the Tour de France. They seem to not be understanding 2020 either. And
they have lost it.
They've locked it in. They've locked in the Tour de France.
You can't go doing that.
In your opinion, as our French correspondent here, Fenz, will the Tour de France go ahead? It's late August, we understand, that they're attempting to run it?
Yeah, look, Macron has said that no big social events will occur before September, so there would have to be a pardon in that to allow spectators before that, which I can't see that occurring, to be honest. But they may run the beginning of it without spectators. But I've
heard that, because I've heard they really want spectators as well. They don't want to just run a spectatorless Tour de France. No. They want all or nothing.
Yeah, look, I think it's we just don't know, do we? And that is exactly what you're saying. You've got to embrace the unknown, because we do not know.
Yep.
There's.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Fenz.
Saying that parts of science are saying that there'll be the second wave of this virus. Others will say they should be able to get on top of it with social distancing, mapping of movement patterns, etc. and isolation of certain groups. I think what happens at this stage for all of us is it actually comes back to us, doesn't it? Don't you reckon? It actually comes back to us as individuals. If we all do the right thing, we still socially distance properly, and we do the right thing, then I think things can return quicker. But we're human beings, very fallible, hopeless most of the time, and carnage will ensue.
Carnage will ensue.
To be honest.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the hot tip for the end of the podcast.
The Tour de France, they will try and run it, but carnage will ensue. I think I need to change my background back to what I had earlier, Tim.
Yeah, I think you need to bring back the doom and gloom behind there. That's it. That's what we need.
Oh, I see. That's
the Fenner tip.
This is Fenn's prediction. Hell will ensue. Carnage will ensue. There you go. That's it. We've got all we need, Fenz.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Well, thanks, Fenz. Thanks a lot for your French correspondence.
No problem.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the third episode of the What's On in the Peloton podcast. Give us a like on Facebook, share, tell your friends, whatever. A little bit of support would be greatly appreciated.
A big shout out also, or a special shout out to our 2 Patreon supporters, Zach and Bill. You've gone above and beyond, and thanks you very much for supporting us. If anyone else is interested, on top of the likes and comments, in supporting us on Patreon, you can jump across to Patreon and just search What's On in the Peloton, and we should come up. We've become really tech savvy, so we've got that kind of stuff down pat. So jump on there if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, just give us an ego boost, as we're saying, with some likes, comments, and sharing this with your friends. Just get the message out there, and let's see if we can carry on our upward spike. Thank you very much for tuning into this third episode of What's On in the Peloton. And, we'll see you in the future for another one. We hope. We can't guarantee that we'll be another one, but we hope it's coming. See you then.
Bye.